excited to have you on the show to talk about potential Ford Maverick news and some, obvious some news how to actually get these. Going back to the Ford Ranger, just a reminder for the Ford Maverick, Ford Ranger, any vehicle you're shopping for, ask the dealership what their allocations are. For example, right now, my dealership, we haven't been allocated a single Ford Ranger Raptor. We're going to get one, probably only one for the entire year, but we've got 3 or 4 orders in for our Ford Ranger Raptor. So if I see that I'm not getting scheduled, and you can have this conversation with your salesperson. This is why I don't necessarily believe in just buying vehicles online, because you couldn't have a conversation with Amazon, but have a conversation, whether it's for the Ford Maverick or Ford Ranger. Ask them, what are my chances of actually getting an allocation for a Ford Ranger Raptor? Now, for the Ford Maverick hybrid. For the Ford Ranger Raptor, I might end up switching to a 2.7 liter. If they come out with a Tremor, I think a Tremor 2.7 liter V6 would make me obviously less cool than Dave, but I'm already used to that. So, Dave can have the Raptor and you can watch his show for the Ranger Raptor. Now, when it comes to the Ford Maverick, we've got currently the hybrid version, which Motor Trend was kind of talking about it not having that much power, but historically, it's actually quite quick. And the 2-liter turbo, which has the 250 horsepower and 270 pound-feet of torque. There's some good talk about different models coming up, but before we get into that, Dave, if you're to buy a Maverick, which model would interest you?
I've done a couple building prices on these things, and I have to say I'm a middle ground guy with this vehicle. I don't think there's enough for the top of the line. I don't think the interior is very sporty, no matter what it seems like. So there's nothing about the interior of one that would sell me over the other. The idea that Sync, what is it, 4.1 is coming, I think, to the Maverick. That's a plus, because why Ford put the older Sync in the vehicle, I have no idea. I think maybe they were a little iffy of whether this truck was going to be a home run or not. So they kind of went a couple items cheaper than, and you want a price point. What was they started at $19,000.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
I think for me, and you've got a picture kind of behind you there, I think what's coming for the truck, and I did a video on this. I had some spy photos a few months ago about this. I think an ST is coming to the Maverick. And I think that, I know they've already bolted some 2.3s into this. I know some Maverick owners have like, hey, it bolts pretty much right into this vehicle. And I can see a point where they take and put a 2.3 in this little thing and just they lower it, kind of gives it that my generation, that 80s vibe of lowering it a little bit, having some fun with lowered trucks again, which is exciting to me, because let the Ranger be the more utilitarian. Let's take the Maverick because it's such a home run. Let's make a generic one, but let's have some fun with it. And
Yeah.
and not, you don't want the price point to get too crazy, but I think it's low hanging fruit for Ford to be able to dump something bigger in the engine bay and to have a lot of fun with it. And I've seen it. I did a year and a half ago. Ford's been testing this thing. I did a video on this where they were all badged up, some strange hole placement in the front grille, looking to get a lot of air. And John, could you imagine an all-wheel drive version of in a 2.3 of this little thing? Like, could you?
Yeah.
Oh, it would give you kind of that. People love the Fiesta ST. They loved that vehicle. It wasn't a big volume seller for Ford, and they
Tons
couldn't
of
keep the
fun.
hot hatch back around. But yes, I raced one this weekend in my GT. It was a lot of fun, and the guy had fun with me, and we were revving back and forth. Of course, there's nothing like a small engine versus my big V8, but it was a lot of fun, and this would bring those vibes. It would give Ford some credibility. Could they do some sort of weird rally truck out of this thing? Because Ford loves in Europe, they love
Yeah.
rally racing. There's a lot of potential there for this little truck, and that's where I think that we're coming up for probably next year, a refresh, right?
Yeah, and well, uh, Ford Focus RS is a beast when it comes to rallying, drifting. It's a beast. So yeah, if this thing is offered with a 2.3 liter, it would be an absolute beast, because the vehicle is roughly 3,700 pounds. And you've got a Ford Ranger coming in at almost 1,000 pounds heavier, and an Explorer, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Explorers are almost 5,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And an Explorer 2.3 liter is fast. An ST line 6-cylinder twin turbo 3-liter is extremely fast, even untuned. Like you said in a previous episode or earlier in this live, there's people tuning them and beating Corvettes at the drag strip. But
Yeah,
this
have you
with the
seen the
2.0,
video? Have you seen the videos of these things already? The little 2 liters tuned and the times they're getting on drag races is hilariously fun, man.
so it's a light vehicle. It's the weight of, if I'm not mistaken, a Mustang weighs right around close to 3,600 pounds. It's right in the
Yeah,
ballpark of a 2024 Mustang. 2.3-liter already. The 2-liter, you bring up a great point. The 2-liter already is fast with 250 horsepower and 270 pound-feet of torque. Tuned, it's extremely fast. The 2.3-liter, if we get an ST, as spy photos that you've shared and you've covered in episodes, if we get that, we're going to have out of the box a very, very fast Ford Maverick.
yeah.
And this thing is going to be wildly fast for people that will tune in. It probably won't take much. It'll probably be an air intake, a tune, an exhaust, maybe
Mhm.
some headers, and people should be able to get an extra, out of the 2.3-liter, it's easy to get an extra 70 pound-feet of torque and 40, 50 horsepower as people have with the Focus RS.
Yeah,
And in the
and
Focus RS, it's 350
the on
horsepower.
the only thing I would ask Ford to do, though, is can we please put a shifter in this thing and not the dial? And
That
and
would be so
nothing
cool.
against the dial for normal Mavericks, but if you're gonna do something fun, let's give it some old, like, everybody wants to have a hand on the steering wheel and a hand on the shifter kinda thing, and if you got a sporty car, it needs to feel the vibes of the sporty car. But John, this thing's definitely due for a refresh. And I remember talking about the Maverick with some journalist friends of mine where at first I didn't get it. I was like, "Why? They just brought the Ranger back. I don't understand where this vehicle's coming from." But then I started doing the math of like, hey, they got rid of all their cars. They only sell a Mustang's the only car they sell now. So
Yeah.
this fills in that void of you get in one, you ride in one, it rides like a car, rides like a nice car, man. And this thing, I I kinda want one to be honest, John, out of all
Yeah.
my fleets, and I'm not brand and right now I've been buying Fords like crazy because Fords have been doing the most fun, I think, for all the vehicles right now. And I mean, unless you wanna get like you were talking about ordering a Porsche or something. I think Ford has been kind of having fun with the market, and this is such a fun vehicle that I like the kinda quirky plastics in the interior, with the weird oranges they do with the light grays and stuff. And you just give me a little bit better sound system and just a little slightly more tech and still keep it relatively cheap, and, I'm all day long about the Maverick.
Yeah, the market really wants, when we look at Ford being down in Super Duty sales, which the prices on those have increased dramatically, but
Mhm.
that sales for the Maverick have gone up 99, I believe 99.8%. It really shows that the car market right now is begging for affordable options.
Mhm.
And you made some really good points about affordability. It needs to stay affordable. The WB made a really good point about how good this looks with these would probably be 20 or 21 inch. These look like they're 21-inch wheels. It looks incredible. So I really do hope that you know, they're working on an ST model, obviously, with the spy photos. I hope it comes to market. I'd be very interested in one. I recently test drove. I'll have a total of 3 videos, maybe 4, coming out on the Ford Maverick Tremor. The Ford Maverick Tremor with the 2-liter, 250 horsepower, 270 pound feet of torque engine was a blast to drive, and it was actually quite competent when it comes to driving on back roads that were snowy and icy. I really enjoyed how, you mentioned that this drives a lot like a car, and that's what I came out with. It was like a sporty-ish car was the feeling that it gave me, but with
Mhm.
softer suspension that you would get in a car. So yeah, I really hope we get sort of a lowered ST version. And even though it'd be called ST because that's the new vocabulary, it'd be essentially a Focus RS truck. And the Focus
Oh,
RS is an incredible vehicle. The dealership that I work at and have some shares in, well, one of the owners has an RS, and he
mhm.
could have basically any vehicle that he wants, but he has a Focus RS. I know another sales consultant. He has had his Focus RS for years now, and he's going to be buried in that vehicle. Like it's
There's so
a special vehicle.
yeah, there's something about a hot hatch, man. They're just so much fun.
Now we might also be getting a plug-in, and it's all about a question of, will we get a plug-in or will we get an all-wheel drive hybrid? Well, I can tell you that I can almost guarantee that we're going to get an all-wheel drive hybrid that's not a plug-in before we get a plug-in. I'd say plug-in would be further down the road, because would they really put in a 2.3-liter plug-in into this when it's going into the Ranger? I highly doubt it. So I expect an all-wheel drive hybrid, very much so, for 2025. So yeah, when you said next year, I didn't say yes right away because my brain isn't in 2024 yet. I'm still back in 2023, but yes, now it is 2025 that we're going to get a good refresh on this vehicle. I can say that it is quite unbelievably likely, very, very likely, we're going to get an all-wheel drive hybrid, and I think that's going to make a lot of people quite happy. And at the end of the day, as much as Motor Trend was kind of talking about how the hybrid, they kind of mentioned it as if it was not enough power or it was missing power. That's, if you look at the data, the 0 to 60 times, 0 to 60 mile per hour times off the hybrid front wheel drive are better than most full size pickup trucks.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
And it's going to be faster when it's all wheel drive. The all wheel drive system will make it faster, and it is crazy. And it's also crazy that some of the world's best journalists can forget to, when comparing, and forget to look at the data. Of course, if you drive a 2-liter turbo and you put the pedal to the floor and you go, "Wow, that's surprisingly quite fast," and then you drive the hybrid, because it's slower, your impression is that the hybrid is slow. Just like if you drive a new Corvette or a new Ferrari and then go drive another vehicle that is actually quite very fast or the fastest for its category, you're going to think, well, this vehicle isn't very fast. That's just how
Well,
speed works.
I found in the industry I'm in that the older guard in this industry sometimes forget that entry level vehicles are still fun. Yes, they may not be the fastest, most capable, but they still there's a price point to that fun. Yes, but that some of the motor trends and some of this, which is why those outlets are dying, by the way, is they need to realize that not everybody has Porsche or Ferrari tastes, and sometimes the lower base, they buy the most vehicles, and maybe you
Yeah.
need to, tone it down a little bit and realize that, hey, there's, whether it be the Bronco or the Maverick or whatever it is, don't thumb your nose up at it, have fun in it, and love it for what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's well said. And you know, I had planned on getting a Porsche 911, but when it comes down to it, with price increases and with interest on a Porsche 911 being at 10.49%, when I got called the other day saying, "Hey, would you like to put order in, even though
Mhm.
you have an order for a 911, would you like to put an order in for Boxster GTS, a 718 GTS?" And even though it's considerably less expensive than my original Porsche build was about, I was debating between 135 and 155,000 Canadian. But now
Mhm.
the 718 GTS is about $150,000. And they added a luxury tax in Canada. So in the end, I just said, you know what? Scrap that project. I'd rather have a Ford Ranger Raptor. And when it comes down to it, I'd rather have, if Ford comes out with a Ranger Tremor with a 2.7-liter, I'd still prefer to have that over the Porsche. Heck, you can buy, how many Mustang GTs can you buy for the price of one 911, and you have to get a GTS just to match, pretty much match the speed of that Mustang.
Man, my 24 GT Performance is the most fun for, I think it was 57,015 is what it MSRP'd at. That's the most fun that I think you can have. Yeah, that's a lot of money to a lot of people, but if you compare it to some of the vehicles like you were talking about, it blows it away. It
Yeah.
really does, for price alone, and there's nothing like a V8. of the Ford Mustang. There's once you start that, it brings I bought this car for my wife, and I drive it more than she does, John, because it brings every time you push that little start, there's something about a big V8.
The sound is incredible, and maybe I'm biased, but I was driving the Lightning, the Ford F-150 Lightning, and I was following a Corvette. I bought anywhere from a 2021 to a 2023 Corvette. So the
Mhm.
new model, the C8, and the C8 pressed on the pedal and took off. And I was in the Lightning, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to get a ticket. I know my Lightning is stupidly fast, 0 to 60 miles per hour in 3.8 seconds. I'm like, I'm going to follow just a little bit behind so it doesn't look like I'm racing because I want to hear it. And my conclusion
Yeah.
was, wow, that the Dave's Mustang GT sounds a heck of a lot better than the new Corvette,
Well, and
surprisingly.
it sounds so good, and you can be 35 miles an hour with the valves completely open on the exhaust, and you're just like, I don't realize, like, I'm probably not going fast, but it's just so much fun. So, let's keep V8s alive. Sorry to
Let's
derail your, Maverick
Oh,
talk
no
there.
worries. No, but I agree. Let's keep V8s alive. And I do want to say that I absolutely love the C8 Corvette. I would just modify the exhaust or get it with one of the modified exhaust packages because
Mhm.
the C8 Corvette, at the end of the day, I prefer it over the new Porsche. The price, it's a fantastic vehicle. It's got great handling. So the Corvette does interest me very much, but with the baby, I Marie always needs to be, watching the baby. So what am I going to do? Go jump in the Corvette and drive around by myself all day on a Sunday until I get home to start, of course, preparing for the show about 5 or 6 hours prior. So I'm not going to wake up at 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning to go drive by myself in the Corvette.
Yeah.
And that's where I love vehicles like, the Ford Bronco, which, well, now, if that's all right with you, we'll talk quickly about the Ford Bronco.
Sure.
Absolutely love the Ford Bronco because you can get up